I manage a venue that used to be a Roman Catholic church. After it was abandoned, it became a flophouse for years before eventually being converted into a space for events. Now, it's where I spend a lot of my time, often alone, especially late at night, closing up after shows or club nights. But the building has a reputation, one I've learned not to take lightly. There's this mezzanine area, and everyone kept telling me that one room up there was haunted. Now, I'm not really a believer in ghosts. I enjoy the stories, sure, but I don't think much of the supernatural. One night, though, I was running around setting up for an event. My mind was a million miles away from spooky stuff. I was just focused on getting everything done. As I walked along the mezzanine, I stopped by the railing for a second to catch my breath. That's when it happened. Out of nowhere, I felt something grab my ankle. Hard. Like a hand wrapping tightly around it. It didn't make sense because I was up on a second level, and below me was a 25-foot drop to the main floor. There was no way anyone could have been down there to grab me. But the sensation was real. I leapt back, frantically shaking my leg, looking all around me. But there was nothing there. No one. I couldn't explain it, and it left me feeling shaken for the rest of the night. I was taking a meeting in broad daylight. I had a collaborator with me, and we were discussing event ideas while sitting on this plush couch in the middle of the space. It was just the two of us. I left a cushion of space between us, just normal business etiquette. Suddenly, mid-conversation, I felt it, the distinct sensation of someone walking up and sitting down between us. I didn't say anything at first, but when I glanced at the empty cushion I froze. My collaborator did too. The cushion, it was moving. The fabric was depressed, as if someone invisible had sat down right there between us. We just sat there in silence, staring at the cushion for what felt like forever. It was at least 30 seconds, which, when you're in the middle of a business meeting, feels like an eternity. Eventually, I waved my arms through the space, trying to shake off the eerie feeling, but I couldn't help laughing nervously. We both felt it, and after that, we ended the meeting pretty fast. Then there was the time I was supervising a rehearsal group early in the morning. I wasn't feeling great. I was hungover, so after letting them in, I went upstairs to crash on a couch in a secluded area. I figured I'd just nap it off and wait out my shift. Mid-nap though, I woke up. I could hear footsteps coming down the stairs from the bell tower. At first, I thought it was just someone from the group, and I kept my eyes shut, hoping they'd leave me alone. But the steps got closer. Then I heard what sounded like a man muttering under his breath. He came right up to me, and that's when I felt it, his hand gripping my hip. Hard. It squeezed so tight it hurt. I jolted awake, yelling, but when I opened my eyes, there was nobody there. I tried to brush it off as sleep paralysis or something, but I'd never experienced anything like that before. And it felt way too real. There have been countless little things too, seeing figures in mirrors, hearing doors slammed shut when I'm the only one in the building. People calling my name from distant corners when I know I'm alone. One of the custodians even refuses to work nights anymore after hearing someone quietly praying in the confessional at 3 in the morning. Some say it's the ghosts of Irish Catholic priests, or their parishioners. But in my opinion, it's probably the spirits of those who passed during the years the church sat abandoned. It was a shelter for the desperate, drug addicts, prostitutes, people who had nowhere else to go. If anyone died there, it was them, not in peace, but in agony and despair. Whatever it is, I've learned to tread carefully in that building, especially when I'm alone. I've had my share of strange, unexplainable experiences, but the one I always come back to happened while I worked at a small supermarket in my hometown. Robertson's was the only grocery store besides a pricey Shopko on the outskirts of town. It was family-owned, and while the Robertson family was known in the community, They had a reputation that ranged from stingy to downright sinister, depending on who you talked to. For us bag boys, Robertson's always felt dark. There was something about the place, from the vaulted ceilings in the back rooms to the creaking, uneven floors in the upstairs offices. We all knew about the door hidden behind some old shelves in the stockroom, a door that looked like it led under the loading dock. No one ever went near it. But the darkest part of Robertson's? The patriarch, Blaine Robertson. He was old, and even though he wasn't in charge of the store anymore, he couldn't let go. He spent his days shuffling around the aisles, watching every move we made. If we clocked in a minute early, he'd be there. If we stood at the time clock too long, he'd snap at us. Blaine always seemed to be around, lurking, waiting. We used to joke that Blaine was some kind of vampire. He seemed to exist just to torment us. He never seemed to age, and nothing ever changed. Even the intercom never called for lost kids, which was odd in itself. It's like Blaine knew every inch of the place, and everyone in it. One night, Blaine came in around 9 to take care of some office work upstairs. My partner and I were just finishing up, killing time in the stockroom by the office stairs. Around 10, when we were ready to close up, I decided to let Blaine know. I started up the stairs, but halfway up, I noticed something strange. The office was completely dark. Every light was off. We had been standing right by the stairs the whole time, and there was no way Blaine had passed us without us noticing. But the office was silent, pitch black. Creepy stuff happened a lot in that building. The water pipes leading upstairs would suddenly vibrate and clang like someone had hit them. Footsteps echoed from above us, even when we knew no one was there. All of it would happen when the offices were empty and dark, like something, or someone, was still moving around up there. Another night, we got so freaked out by the sounds from the offices that we decided to walk the store to kill time until our shift ended. As we passed the aisles, a can of green beans randomly fell off a shelf right in front of us. We shrugged it off, put it back, and kept walking. But 2 hours later, it happened again. This time, when I put the can back, another can, way down the aisle, flew off the shelf. We didn't bother putting that one back. Instead, we spent the rest of the night huddled by the cash registers, watching the aisles. The creepiest thing, though, happened to another bag boy. After his experience, he requested to be taken off night shifts. He was in the break room, eating dinner, when he heard a baby crying from the women's bathroom. He had already been in there for 5 minutes and hadn't seen anyone come in. No one with a baby, at least. He tried to ignore it at first, but after 5 more minutes of hearing the crying, he knocked on the door. No answer. Just the sound of a baby bawling. He kept knocking, calling out, but no response, just the crying. Finally, he cracked the door open. The room was dark. Empty. The crying stopped immediately. No one ever found out where the sounds were coming from that night, or why things moved when no one was around. But for those of us who worked there, we knew something wasn't right about Robertson's, and we knew to stay away from that hidden door under the loading dock. This is a story I've never shared publicly. In fact, my boyfriend and I don't talk about it much because it's honestly unbelievable, even for us, and we lived through it. It happened back in January of 2016. My friends and I had gone to a concert and had a great time. Nothing strange, nothing unusual. After the concert, we all went back to a friend's house to hang out. One of the guys there, let's call him Dan, started pulling out crystals and stones for us to check out. He had one crystal in particular, an amethyst, that had been in his family for over 300 years. It was old, powerful. He was really proud of it. Things took a turn when one of the girls in our group, let's call her Sarah, picked up the crystal. The moment it touched her fingers, her entire face changed. Her eyes went completely black. Her pupils dilated so wide that they consumed the color in her irises. The look on her face was menacing. She started sneering at us in this way that sent chills down my spine. Then she began speaking, but not like you or I would speak. It sounded like she was talking backwards, her voice garbled, unnatural. Almost immediately after this happened, 2 people in the group ran out of the room, throwing up uncontrollably. It was like whatever energy Sarah was giving off was making them physically sick. Then Sarah stood up, and things got even worse. She started saying these strange things, stuff that made us all feel like we were witnessing a possession, except she seemed fully aware of everything she was doing. She accused one of the guys there of cheating on her with another girl who was in the room. Her words were biting, cruel, and seemed to know things no one should have known. The air in the room felt heavier, colder, and then, without warning, things started moving. Objects in the room slid across the floor, doors slammed shut on their own. It was as if she had control over everything happening around us. I'll be honest with you, I was terrified. Some of us left the room to regroup, trying to figure out what was happening and what we could do. One of the guys, who was apparently the one Sarah accused of cheating, nervously laughed and said that she was probably just crazy. No sooner had the words left his mouth, a massive chunk of ice fell from the roof and shattered his car windshield. There was no way it was just coincidence. The timing was too perfect. Later that night, things calmed down a little, but no one was ready to sleep. My boyfriend and I were supposed to share a room with Sarah, but after what we had witnessed, there was no way we were doing that. Instead, we stayed upstairs while Sarah slept downstairs. Or at least, we thought she was sleeping. It started with noises, metal scraping against something, what sounded like fingers tapping on a table, followed by hysterical crying, and then, maniacal laughter. The noises went on, and it felt like we were stuck in some kind of horror movie. At one point, it went quiet, and we thought maybe Sarah had finally fallen asleep. My boyfriend pulled out his phone to check Facebook, trying to distract himself from everything that had happened, but the first post on his feed was from Sarah. It was posted just 5 minutes earlier. The post read, "Congratulations, you've awoken the dragon." As soon as we read those words, we heard something moving up the stairs. It wasn't Sarah. No, this sounded like something much bigger. We both froze in place. The sound was heavy, like thick, padded footsteps slowly climbing the stairs. It sounded almost reptilian, like something out of a nightmare. I don't know how else to describe it, but the best I can say is it sounded like a dragon. As ridiculous as that might sound, that's the only way I can explain it. My boyfriend and I didn't move. We just listened in horror as the footsteps got closer and closer, until finally, they were just 2 steps away from reaching the top. We peeked over the side of the staircase, our hearts pounding in our chests, but when we looked, there was nothing. No one was there. The footsteps stopped, and all we saw was an empty staircase. But we weren't crazy. We both heard it. We both felt it. We stayed in that spot for the rest of the night, paralyzed by fear, too terrified to move. Eventually, the noises from downstairs stopped, and the house fell silent again. After what felt like hours, we finally gathered the courage to go downstairs. But when we did, we found something strange. The front door was wide open. The basement door was open too, and every single cabinet in the kitchen had been flung open. But Sarah? She was gone. What's even weirder is that we had 3 indoor cats at the time, and with the doors wide open, they could have easily run out, but they didn't. It was as if they knew something we didn't. After Sarah left, we started finding strange things in the house, particularly in the basement. Old memorabilia, weird relics. It was like the whole night had a dark energy hanging over it. Whether what we experienced was paranormal, some kind of dark magic, or just a girl with serious issues, I don't know. What I do know is that I've never felt safe talking about that night, and I never want to experience anything like it again.